Hi, I'm Jayne from Poppy Patchwork and welcome to my quilt block series. In each of these videos I'm going to show you how to make a different block and they're all going to measure 12 inches. I hope you like this video. If you do, click the like button and please let me know in the comment section below what other videos you'd like me to make. Let's get quilting.
Today I'm going to show you how to make 5-spot quilt block. This will make a finished 12-inch block. And if you'd like to know how to use this block in a quilt, please watch to the end of this video where I've got some illustrations to show you how to use it. This block is made up of corner square units, and Mary's triangle units. You will need two 3.5 by 5 inch rectangles in background fabric, 16 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares, in fabric A you will need two 2.5 by 5 inch rectangles, in fabric B you will need four 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares, and two 4.5 by 5.5 inch rectangles. In fabric C you will need five 4.5 by 4.5 inch squares. Making the corner square units. Use the 4.5 inch squares in fabric C and the 2.5 inch squares in background fabric and fabric B. Draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of the 2.5 inch squares. As shown here, and repeat for all 20 squares. Pin a small square right sides together in the corner of a large square. And then in a small square right sides together in the opposite corner of a large square. Repeat with all 5 large squares. Sew on top of the drawn lines. So I'm at the sewing machine and I'm going to sew on top of that line on those small squares which are right sides together in the corners of the large squares. I'm going to chain piece these, so that's the first one and here's the second one going in. I'm going to do all 5 large squares one after the other. So chain piecing saves on your thread and also speeds up the process. So once I've done all 5 down one side, I will cut the threads in between the units, the squares, and then I will sew on top of the line on the other side with the other square in the other corner. With all of that sewn together, we now go back to the cutting table. cut a 1/4 inch away from the sewn lines. As shown here. Repeat for all 5 squares. Press seams towards the triangles. And repeat for all 5 squares. Pin a 3rd square in a corner, right sides together, with the drawn line as shown. Then pin the 4th square in the last corner, right sides together, with the drawn line as shown. Repeat with all 5 squares. Sew on top of the lines, then cut a 1/4 inch away from the sewn line. So back at the sewing machine, I'm going to sew on top of the line again. So I'm just repeating the process by sewing those small squares onto the large square, and I'm going to be sewing the 3rd and 4th squares in place. We will now return to the cutting table to cut a 1/4 inch away from these sewn lines, as shown here. Repeat for all 5 squares. Press towards the triangles. And repeat for all 5 squares. Trimming the corner square units. Line the 1/4 inch line on your ruler up with the point on your squares and trim any excess fabric. Repeat on all 4 sides. Making Mary's triangles unit. Use the rectangles as shown. Begin with the 5-inch strips. Join right sides together along the 5-inch edge, as shown here. Sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Press seams towards the darker fabric. Turn the unit round. And cut the unit in half. So that each piece is 2.5 inches wide. Rotate one of the units as shown. Pin right sides together. Repeat to make 2 pairings. Sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Before pressing, cut the seam allowance, not the stitching, at the halfway point. As shown, and then press the seam in opposite directions. Lay this unit next to the 4.5 by 5.5 inch piece. Place right sides together as shown. Rotate and lay the ruler on top of the unit. Line the 45-degree ruler line along the edge of the unit. The angle of the ruler must pass through the corner and the seam intersection. Draw a line along the edge of the ruler. Turn the unit round and repeat. Pin in place and sew on top of the drawn lines. Sew on top of the drawn line for both units. And then turn around and sew on top of the other drawn line for both units. Cut a 1/4 inch away from each line. As shown here. Repeat for both units. Using a speciality ruler, trim the unit to 4.5 inches. Line the 4.5 inches on the stitch line and line up the centre point with the vertical line. Using a standard ruler, trim the unit to 4.5 inches and that centre point is at 2.25 inches. Press all your units, pressing the seams towards the large triangle. Block layout. Press your units and lay in the block layout. And if you want to know how to get perfect points on your quilt blocks, then click on the link to take you to my video. Pin the bottom 2 rows matching the points. Sew with the 1/4 inch seam. There's no need to press yet. Pin the top row units as shown. So when I'm sewing these together, I flip them over so that I can see the seams and the point at which I want the stitch line to cross through. So again, I'm going to sew all 3 pairs together, chain piecing. By flipping it over, I can be more accurate at hitting that point on the triangle. Press the seams open and return to the block layout. Pin and sew the right hand column to the centre column, matching the seams and points with a 1/4 inch seam. Return to the block layout. There's no need to press yet. Sew with the left hand column to the block with a 1/4 inch seam and return to the block layout. Press your seams open. Congratulations! You have made the 5-spot block.
Here are some quilt options. This is an illustration of the quilt repeating the same block. There is no sashing or borders, but the use of the white background fabric in the block allows the design and fabrics to stand out. This is an illustration of the quilt repeating the same block placed on point. There is no sashing or borders, but you would need to add blocks in background fabric in between the blocks, shown here with the stars, and use setting triangles around the edges, again shown here with the stars. This is an illustration of the quilt repeating the same block but with sashing, cornerstones and borders. And finally, this is an illustration of a sampler quilt using some of the blocks from this quilt block series. The sashing in this quilt is in the white background fabric. The cornerstones and border is in a darker fabric to pop and frame the quilt. Want to learn more? Watch another one of my videos from the quilt block series. Click above to go to my playlist. I hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel. More of these videos will be posted, so please tune in. Thank you for watching and bye for now.